Hello and welcome back to the h.e.r.LIFE BLOGCAST. I'm your host, Rachel Malak, and we are joined by one of my very favorite guests, Kevin Verga.
Hello.
It's so good to have you back, bud. I don't call you bud. That
back.
felt weird as soon as I said it, Kevin. I'm sorry.
It's right, we're buds.
Okay. You can call me bud too. How's
Alright,
it feel? How have you been? You were on our 30th episode extravaganza, but we only got to hear a little bit about fascism, and then we kind of had to wrap it up. So how do you feel?
Well, I actually have a lot of notes right here. Let me just get to them. Do you want to hear about Robert Paxton?
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I've started listening on Spotify. I don't know if you listen to this. My sister told me about it. Your Daily Drive, where they make like a mix of news and music, and it's usually about 2.5 hours long, made for like a commute, probably. Yeah, but I just listen to it as I'm getting ready in the mornings and whatever, and it's really nice. I feel like I get a good overview because I don't watch as much news as I used to, like in school when I had more of a strict schedule.
Yeah.
And I've heard so much about Antifa. And I was like, wow, I really was living in the dark. And I felt so proud of myself that I knew what it was as they mentioned it so casually. Because, like, before I would have just zoned out and been like, what the hell? Like, I don't care. But I care now. So thank you.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm happy that my discussion of fascism, brought about a little bit of a light and, helped you and I and maybe a few other listeners study the joys of anti-fascism. So that's exciting.
I love to stand by it here. That's always a good thing. So thank you, Kevin. We have a really good episode planned, and I'm excited to get a lot of your thoughts. But before we dive in, you want to do some reflecting?
I love to. Yeah. Okay. Let's do it.
You start. What are you happy about right now?
I am happy about, well, maybe I'll start that sentence over. I've been smiling a lot more.
Wow.
Just smiling when there's nothing directly causing it. And it's because I've been focusing. I carry a lot of tension in my jaw.
Okay.
That's where I carry my stress a little bit.
Okay.
And I found that a great de-stressor, and especially a de-stressor of the jaw, if anyone carries stress in their jaw, is just smile. And also just kind of sit there like, you're not going to be able to hear it, but just kind of sit there like, sometimes, because I think everyone's so afraid to just like sit with their mouth open.
True.
But it's so relaxing. Yeah.
Do you ever like sing or something when you're
Yeah, I've been singing a lot because I just like playing music. But also I've been singing while stretching.
Ooh.
And doing a little yoga. So that helps it out a little bit. It strengthens your vocal muscles and also your core, whatever you're working out. It just kind of adds a new dimension to it. So those are happy. Singing and smiling. What's better than that?
That's so great. This reminds me, I've been doing a lot of yoga with Kerry Washington. She does a lot of Instagram lives, and that's kind of what started me on my yoga journey. And she talks a lot, and I know I'm probably going to butcher the name of this, Ujjayi breathing. Does that sound familiar to you?
I've never heard of it, but
it's something that sounds like that. And I didn't look it up because I didn't know we were going to be talking about breathing and singing, but it's essentially like making sound when you breathe to like emphasize the in and the out and da da da. And like, that sound when you're fogging up a mirror, like, like that's the kind of breath you're supposed to push out every single time you inhale and exhale throughout the practice. And it just reminds, because you forget about the breath. I mean, I forget about the breath constantly, and that's the whole point, to be focused on the breath. So that helps you like come back to it. So that's what it reminds me of. You and Kerry Washington, man, you're teaching me the same things.
What a compliment to me. Thank you
wasn't
for saying that. No,
it
was. What a compliment. Yeah.
I was like,
I'm happy.
Okay, he doesn't like it. No, yeah, that's big. I mean, those are Kerry Washington's up there, one of my faves. Like, that's big. So I feel like you'd get along. I feel like we'd all get along.
Yeah, next episode we'll reach out to her. We'll send her this part, and maybe we'll get a nice.
I'm gonna start just sending out wild pitches. Like, the worst they could say is no.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a great answer, though, Kevin. I'm glad you're happy about your smiling and your singing. I'm happy for you. I'm very happy because me and Emma are going to be reunited this weekend. We decided Emma has a 4-day weekend with work, so that's good because I think we all need a breather. And so she was like, maybe we can meet up at some point. we picked the middle spot between our two homes, which is Tannersville, Pennsylvania, which happens to be the town in which there's a great set of outlets. Outlet shopping is one of my favorite things. Same with Emma. So we're going to meet at the Tannersville outlets on Friday. So already, once this is out, we're already met. But I'm so excited. I just can't wait to see her and spend the day together. I think we both need it. There is nothing. Oh my God, there's nothing like it. I'm so excited to see her.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so
That's
happy.
Exciting. Friends and shopping at discount prices.
Like, what else do you need? No discount on this experience. I can't wait to see her. I so love her. Okay. Excited about that. Happy about that. What are you excited about?
I think I mentioned when I was on the last episode 30, I was playing a lot more music. And at that point, I was just getting back into playing with others, going over to friends' houses, just at one friend's house with a mask on. And I've been assembling a tiny drum set. So that's been really exciting. I bought a 12-inch kick drum, which is pretty small, and then a 9-inch snare drum. And I just carried those over and have a hi-hat and have this very minimalist drum setup while they play their guitars. And we're doing covers and making originals, and it's just been fun. It's just a nice thing to do once or twice a week. And I like the challenge of, all right, you have whatever's in front of you, make a drum kit out of it. Obviously, I'm investing a decent amount of money into getting and purchasing real small miniature drum pieces, but it's been successful and it sounds pretty good. So that's been exciting, and we're doing it safely and musically.
I love that. I'm happy for you. I have a question. How do you feel creatively? Because one of our other episodes that we had was about passion projects, and you talked a lot about making music because it's what you're passionate about and kind of prioritizing that because that's an important thing to prioritize. How do you feel creatively you've evolved since pandemic? Do you think you're feeling more creative juices now that this is our new normal, or was it hitting you more in the beginning? Like, where are you in that spectrum?
I think I've consistently been just as creative, but during these past 6 months, I've had them come out more in that I have an outlet because I just have all my stuff in one spot. I am not in my small New York City apartment, but I am in my home where there's a drum kit in my basement. I'm currently in my music room. Maybe I don't know if it's in frame, but there's guitars and amps all around me, and I'm 10 minutes away from friends that I can play with. So I think when I was in New York and working, commuting, and being in an office, all of it was in my head, and a lot of it congregated in my jaw and chest because my body was creating things and needed to get it out. So I was journaling a lot more, but now I'm creating a lot more just content and music. So it's always been there. So it's been exciting, hence the reflection of the week.
Yeah. No. That's cool to hear. Yeah, I was interested. Oh, that's so great. I love to hear your stuff. Always feel free to send it along. We might play some of it on the show.
I made a song for the last time I was on, so maybe I'll stretch that one out because I know I got some requests to Kevin, please make a full American Fascism album. And I said,
more. Maybe. Yeah. I mean, give the people what they want. No, I'm excited. I'm excited to hear. So thank you, Kevin.
More fascism, more. Okay, sorry. You can cut that part out.
Kevin's dad is like, what? What? Did somebody say fascism? Stop.
Oh, no.
She's not even here. Okay. Moving on to I'm excited because I think I'm on my way to establishing a much more productive work from home routine. A few weeks ago, I was working an office job and doing some other remote work, Instagram, social media kind of stuff. So it was kind of easier to balance because when I was at the office job, I needed to be at the office job doing that kind of stuff. And then when I was home, it was prioritizing that kind of work. But now I'm doing a bunch of gigs and they're all just happening on my computer, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to, like, when do I focus on this? What hours do I spend doing this? When do I work on the show? And, like, how do I balance all of that? So it's going to take a minute, but I feel better than I did last week. I think last week was a big, like, oh, what are we doing? Where it was just a lot of hours of the day flying by and not efficient, not spending them efficiently. But now I'm feeling better.
Great.
Yeah.
And you're excited about the trend. how it's going.
Yes, I'm excited about like a week from now, 2 weeks from now when I'm just good. Like I know what hours of the day are spent doing what, and I don't need to fret, and I can just work and get it done. I'm also like, all of my stuff is part-time, so I feel the pressure to be like constantly logged into this email and monitoring every single thing, but it's like, that's not what I was hired to do. Like I'm a part-time person. So it's like, I want to do the best job I can, but I'm also like doing other things. This isn't my full-time thing. So we're balancing, we're readjusting my own expectations for myself, and I'm excited about getting there. We're getting there, but I want to be there.
Yeah. Well, that's maybe hinting at what we're going to talk about, but could it be possible that you enjoy the journey right now before you get there? Because the question is, do you ever get there?
Right.
A perfect harmonious balance of work, play, and life.
Right.
I would definitely am happy where I am now than where I was a year ago today when I was just got hired going on 2 months. I definitely feel a lot stabler now in my job, which is odd because we're in a global recession / pandemic / lockdown indefinitely. But I feel in terms of my job, I'm solid as a rock. So I'm happy to hear that for you as well.
Yeah, like it's cool to like recognize it. I feel like it's nice to be out of the panic stage, because there's a moment where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, and everybody's gonna be stressed out because I'm not doing my work effectively. And it's like, calm the hell down. Like, I don't know. You said something to me once, I think in one of our vlogs. Me, Kevin, and Emma have been blogging a lot, just like sending actual videos, which is so great to me. I love it so much. I feel like they've just helped me a lot. And you said something in a work from home themed vlog, which leads me to this, that I would like to have an episode totally dedicated to like work from home, how we've adjusted, and that's in the works. But for now, teaser, you said something to me that like, there's so much more going on than our little individual jobs. Like, it is insane in the grand scheme of things to stress out about responding to an email promptly. Like, yes, that's important, and yes, it could affect other people, but like, in the grand scheme, relax.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a important thing to keep a perspective, whether we're in the before times or the current times. I've made mistakes throughout my career post graduation, and every single time someone has texted me or emailed me saying, hey, you didn't submit this one thing, I did it for you, and I say, I am so sorry, I really thought I did that. And every time it's come back, it's no worries, it's all right, I'm going to bed, good night. And then I say, wow, okay, they have my back, and that worked out in the end. And that's a really nice thing, in that not only do you keep your perspective, but if other people around you keep their perspectives, it just creates a culture of competence and confidence and relaxation in a way.
I love that.
Yeah, I just thought of that.
Snippet.
Yeah.
Okay, Kev. That's good. All right. Thank you for your commentary. I appreciate it. Okay, can I do my realization first? Because I really just want to build up the anticipation for yours, because I just always love what you say.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I wanted you to go first as well.
Oh,
not
good.
because
Okay.
I thought mine was so great, but I just wanted to change it up a little bit.
Okay, no, cool. We're on the same page here. Mine's kind of weird, but I'm excited to hear your thoughts, to see if you have a reaction or perhaps an example of your own. For a few nights, probably last week, I was having a terrible time sleeping, which I think had to do with all the stress I was facing, whatever. And I couldn't sleep, and whatever I do when I can't sleep is I get a snack and I put on Gilmore Girls, which for me is just, I don't know if you've ever seen it. You probably haven't, but there's something so wholesome and just so calming to me about that show, because it's just, you just can't be sad when you're watching it. Like, it calms me down, and it reminds me of, I don't know, it's just beautiful, and I love it so much. And I'm watching the show, and I feel like most girls who watch it relate more to Rory Gilmore, who's the young woman coming of age, hint, hint, and kind of relate to her journey and see how, like, she deals with the perils of life, da-da-da-da. But me, I've always so much more appreciated Lorelai Gilmore, who's the mom. And I feel like I've adapted a lot of my young woman personality based on her character, and watching it back after not watching it for a few years, I was like, oh my God, like, that's the thing that I do. Like, one of her, like, I pick up her mannerisms and I do things of this character that I've watched. And then I'm thinking, okay, who else does this apply to? And I can think of 2 other examples. So I have 3 people total who I think I've crafted myself after. I want to get your opinion. 1 is Lorelai Gilmore. 2 is Mindy Kaling, more specifically Mindy Lahiri of the Mindy Project, which I think I showed you an episode once of back in South, and I want to. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the opposite of vaguely? Vividly.
Wow.
Vividly.
Okay,
Yes.
good. It was after Black Mirror. We'll get into it. So Lorelai Gilmore, Mindy Kaling / Lahiri, and also Kelly Ripa. I feel like I've adopted so many of Kelly Ripa's things because I watch her and slightly idolize her a lot because I want her job so freaking bad. And so I think if you morphed the 3 of them into a woman who is coming of age, you would get some version of me. And that was just a realization I had. I think everybody has certain things that they draw from. So, probably more often they're real people that they actually know in their real lives. But I feel like I know these women, and I'm happy that I can kind of adopt some of their personalities. Reaction.
Yeah. I like how you phrased, if you mix all 3 of them together, you'll get some version of you. And it's interesting to think, thought experiment of, is it you, or is it some other version of you? And what amount of these people, is it 33%, 33%, 33%, or what is it, like 50% Kelly, 50% this, to 25, and what will get this existence of Rachel, and what would the other Rachels be like, you know?
No, it's true. I don't know. Do you have any characters and or real life people or celebrities or figures that you see yourself in, or vice versa?
Well, when you were talking about Gilmore Girls,
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about how a common thing in SpongeBob fans is, as they get older, they relate more to Squidward. And when you're young, you think, why is this person such a buzzkill?
Yeah.
And then when you get older, you get your first few jobs and maybe your first annoying neighbor, you realize that his lines are very funny and true and a little bit nihilistic, and that's what I relate to a little bit more. I'm not very much a Squidward, but that's the first thing I thought of when you brought up Gilmore Girls, so I understand.
Right. And also like this nostalgic kind of revisiting as an adult, and you kind of have a new perspective and realize maybe how much it not shaped you, because that seems too dramatic for what I'm trying to say, but you get the gist.
Yeah. And it's nice because if you go through a show, you usually follow the main character, the protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
And when you revisit the show, going back to another episode we've done together, you get to follow different characters.
Yep.
And I just recently finished Avatar: The Last Airbender for the 2nd or 3rd time, and I was really just meshing with Sokka the whole time. And Sokka gets it, follow Sokka. But in the first ones, you really follow Aang and his Avatar journey.
Yeah.
But Suki and Sokka, I ship them. For the Avatar fans.
It's also interesting to me, more broadly, how much the media that we consume impacts us. And I think it more than you ever realize. So it's cool when I have a second where I can step back and really think about it, because it's happening on such a regular basis all the time, whether it's the shows we watch or the music we listen to or the books we read. And we're going to talk about all of that too. We love to talk about that. But it's just cool when there's a concrete moment that I could be like, whoa, this is has impacted my life. It's big, but it's interesting.
I realized that my brain is very valuable.
Ooh.
There's a lot of experience in there, and I was just reflecting on it because you got to take care of it. I was back in Manhattan this past weekend, and whenever I cross the street, I look both ways 8 times. I'm always head on a swivel. You gotta go through your life with head on a swivel. I learned that in football back in middle school. You gotta be looking out for things because your brain's very valuable. And I just been reflecting on that, and I was thinking back to the final seat of Blade Runner. That was the last social thing I did before quarantine. Me and Emma watched Blade Runner at like 2 a.m. on Leap Day. And one of the last scenes, spoiler alert, I'll try to keep it, least spoilers. A pivotal moment is a main character that's very powerful is about to lose their power in a certain way. And he says, I've seen things that you wouldn't believe. And all these moments will be lost in time, like tears in the rain. And I'm working so hard to fill up my brain to its brims because I want to learn and experience life as much as you can. But if you're not taking care of your brain, you're not going to be able to get that. So I've just been thinking about that, of what can I do when I'm driving to the city or walking around the city. Obviously, there's the physical safety, but then there's also health and wellness and feeding your mind and exercising your mind. And it's so much work. It's almost exhausting to keep your body and brain healthy. So I just want to acknowledge that's a lot of work. I understand that wellness is hard, and I'm just realizing that now. I knew it before, but in a different perspective today.
Interesting. No, a good thing to keep in the back of our minds, for sure. The minds that we're taking care of. No, that's so true. I think you're always big on headspace, man, and I think that's really important. Headspace.
Yeah, I told this story this past weekend to someone who wasn't there in the moment, but I was thinking, do you know what your best joke was? Like, do you have one where you're like, oh, this is
I didn't think so, but then when you said that, one flashed into my mind. Do you want to hear it?
Absolutely.
So it was, this is so good. I'm really proud of it. So one time, it was freshman move-in day. I believe it was my second year in South, but I'm not really sure. And a mother came up to me as I was handing out like fire safety packets and whatnot and whatever. And she came up to me and her and her son were there. And she was like, we forgot toothpaste and deodorant and like the toiletry bag. We heard that there's a Walgreens nearby. Could you give me directions? And I looked at her like deadpan serious. I said, oh my gosh, yes, it's really close. Right over there, corner of Happy and Healthy.
Wow.
And I'm like, I'm serious?
So she winds up getting lost in the Bronx. She's looking for the corner of Happy and Healthy, gets picked up by public safety 3 hours later, drops out of the floor the next day. Can you believe it? I remember that story.
I just thought my delivery was excellent, and it took them both a second because they were just ready to like absorb the directions. And I was like, nah, man, it's just Fordham Plaza. Like, it's straight across the street. You literally can't miss it. But I just really thought real quick on my feet there. I have an ad-centered brain.
Is that Walgreens corner of Happy and Healthy? Is it?
I hope so. Otherwise, that joke sucks.
It is something. No, it still works. I'm just curious. I'm
pretty sure.
It's in my brain somewhere, but I don't know.
I'm going to do a quick Google search of Happy and Healthy. Walgreens at the corner of Happy and Healthy.
Perfect. Fantastic.
Yeah, thanks. I was really proud of that. I don't remember the kid, though. For as vividly as I remember my delivery of the joke, I do not know which resident it was. I wish I did, because I would revisit. I'd be like, hey, man, sorry if that was weird. I didn't mean to stress your mom out. I had to say it.
Yeah. I think that shows the two different sides of stress, is that they're stressed and they want to fix it. They made a mistake. And then you are on your 15th hour after 2 weeks of 12-hour trainings, and you're just trying to lighten the mood for yourself.
Right.
Even though it might be detrimental to the person you're talking to. Yeah, I've been there. I understand.
You know, it's a different kind of like brain friedness.
Mine is also RA related.
Yes.
I was just thinking back, because I think I'm a funny person. I like to tell a lot of jokes. I was thinking, what is my favorite, my favorite one? Maybe it's not the funniest, but maybe you were there for this. I don't know if you thought it was funny on your side, but this is also for me. So my senior year, your junior year, it was winter training. So it was my last training after however many hours of doing it. So I figure they gave me a icebreaker, get the day started spot. So I said, this is my last time with a mic in my hands where I have a captive audience of res-lifers, so I'm going to use it to the fullest. So in the shower before going, I thought of this idea to break the ice, and this is how I want to do it. So everyone was standing there. It was one of the last days, and everyone was very stressed. Like, I walked in, everyone was biting their nails to the nubs of their fingers, and I don't know what was happening that day, but everyone was stressed. So they call me up, and I say, hey, everyone calm down. I'm here. I'm going to talk to you now. We're going to meditate. So, like, we're all going to meditate. I felt the air move out of the room. Like, oh, okay, we're not going to do Captain's Coming. We're not going to, do a name game. So I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. Everyone sit up very tall in your chairs. Get your breathing in, and take your hands and put them in front of your body, kind of straight up, about maybe 6 inches apart, and then just start moving them together, clapping, louder, everyone get louder, come on. And then everyone started cheering and getting all crazy, and I was like, thank you so much. That has nothing to do with the meditation, but I just wanted to be applauded for today. And it worked, and I got to be applauded for, and that rarely happens. So I think it was my best joke for me. Meditation.
That was a strong joke, and like you had me going again, and then I realized what was happening as it was happening. It was strong then, it's stronger now. And listen, here's my reaction. Much more applauding to come for you, Kevin Verga.
Wow.
I really believe that.
And I won't have to trick people into doing it, hopefully.
They're gonna do it. They're gonna hear the story and just do it on command whenever they see you. That's what I want for you.
That'd be a nice superpower to have.
Hey.
Yeah.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Right, well.
So anyway, Blade Runner is a great movie, and take care of your brain. That's the moral of that story.
That's what a way to round out this round of reflections. It's always interesting, and I really appreciate the time you take to plan out your response. I do, because you can't come up with these on the fly if you really want to have good talks.
Mm-mm.
So I appreciate you, Kev. Thanks.
Written down right here.
Thanks, bud.
No
Still
problem,
weird
buddy.
enough that I said that. I'm really sorry.
Sorry, bud.
Okay. Let's dive into the bulk of the episode. We're skipping over all the other intro-y segments because we just don't have time. But Kevin, please, if at any point you have a swoon that you want to share, or a certain piece of content comes to mind that you just want to tell us about,
okay,
throw it in there. Even if it does, try to make it relate. But like, if it doesn't, it's okay. If you feel so inclined, let me know. But we're not going to do a whole independent segment on it because I want to jump right in. The theme of today's episode is coming of age, because I think it's such an interesting genre in the media we consume, and also we're both experiencing it to some degrees right now, to every degree you might say right now. And I just think there's a lot to discuss about it. We're going to warm our way up to a discussion about a specific show that both of us watched and loved, and I think that's going to carry us through a lot of the maybe debates that will come of this. But before that, let's just do a little bit of background. I want to differentiate, or I guess just further define, coming of age versus bildungsroman. Are you familiar with the term? I was an English major. I don't know if you heard.
Yeah, I remember learning about that in one of my English classes, and that was maybe one of the first words that made me fall in love with words.
See?
Thinking, wow, I can throw that into casual conversation, make it seem very, like, I definitely know what I'm talking about, for To Kill a Mockingbird. So,
see?
Yeah.
It's a great word. It's a great word, but there's a distinction to be made between that and coming of age. Coming of age is just growing up. Everybody does it. You can't avoid it, or try as you might. But a bildungsroman, which a lot of people say bildungsroman, I don't think that's cool enough, so I say the roman. I don't know if that's technically true, but that's how I was learned. Okay, that's how I was taught.
Gotta be.
Roman. Anyway, the added caveat is intense emotional education and evolution. So you have to kind of go through something that changes you, learn from it, become the evolved, mature version of yourselves. And in the literary sphere, at least, 4 things have to happen throughout this journey. Number 1, loss. You have to lose something, whether it's a person or an experience or something. Number 2, a journey, getting out of that loss and into a place of a better place. Number 3, conflict and personal growth, which happens kind of along the process. And finally, 4, maturity, which brings us back to the coming of age, which you can't avoid. But I think you can grow up without, can you? I don't know. A question I guess we could discuss, but an important distinction that I wanted to make between coming of age, bildungsroman.
Mm-hmm.
Any things to say just initially, Kevin?
Yeah. Coming of age, I think in some cultures there is a ceremony or maybe tasks you have to do to come of age. But then there are some, like you said, where it just happens anyway. When you become an adult, you just turn 18. Mm-hmm. But when I was younger, in middle school, I was going to a lot of bar and bat mitzvahs where you come of age at 13 and you have to go through a certain educational system and have the whole ceremony, and that's when you come of age. A lot of my friends that had bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs at 13 would probably tell you that they were not adults at that time.
Yeah.
They probably still aren't now, but it was nice to see when I was that young,
Mm-hmm.
my friends to be seen as an adult in their Jewish culture, and it changes you a little bit, and you get a nice sweatshirt or duffel bag out of the whole ordeal, and you see one of your closest friends turn into an adult right before your eyes. I mean, that's what we all want to be when we're in middle school, I think. So
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
Thank you.
And cool to kind of track that progress, right, from like the very beginning, because I think that's another thing. And rarely, I think, real people, if your life isn't a plot of a film or a book or something, can you pinpoint the moment where it happens. I think sometimes, but I think even when you can pinpoint a moment, it's not the only moment, right? So it's interesting when those concrete things do happen to kind of look back, track progress. It's a landmark in your coming of age. It's not the coming of age.
Yeah. Well, that's what I am thinking about primarily when we decided we were going to talk about coming of age, of reflecting back on the media that I've consumed and really enjoy that has to do with it. And when I was reflecting on it, I realized that coming of age stories, although the idea that first popped in my head was Breakfast Club style high schoolers coming of age and learning that they're cool and, you know, pumping their hands in the air while Simple Minds sings their hit song. But then I was thinking to other ones where coming of age stories happen much later in life. And I was thinking, wow, I will have multiple, like you said, landmarks of coming of age throughout my whole life. There won't be just one moment where I will walk out on the other side saying, wow, I've done it. I've hit my full potential, which is exciting, but also scary because you're going to keep entering these new chapters of life where you're going to have to reevaluate yourself. And if you don't enjoy doing that because it's scary and hard, like we are saying, it's hard to keep yourself healthy and active. You might not enjoy it, but I think you'll be better because of it by going through it.
Definitely. I think it's definitely a perspective thing, but also if I've learned anything, especially as of late, I think everything is a perspective thing, right? Like there are multiple sides to anything and you can choose the positive one if you want to. So this is definitely one of them. I agree. So you mentioned, go ahead.
I was just going to say, no, you go.
Okay. So you mentioned the Breakfast Club. Do you have any other like top of the mind examples when you think coming of age that maybe have impacted you or that are influential to your life in some way?
Yeah, well, I have a list.
Okay.
And I realized I love coming of age stories. That's
you
what
seem
I
like
like.
a coming of age guy. That's why you're on this episode.
That's what I like. I just realized that. So I've come of age and realized something about myself that's my favorite movies are pretty much all coming of age movies and books. So here's my list. Number 1 at the top, Good Will Hunting. That's the one that's in my soul.
Can I say I put that on the outline for you. I knew that you were going to do that because I wanted you to. That's such a classic Kevin film.
Yeah, Good Will Hunting. And then there's a few. I've been watching a lot of movies and reading a lot of books in quarantine, and I've enjoyed them all. So other great ones, highly recommend. 20th Century Women, Lady Bird, the TV shows Rami or High Fidelity. I love the movie Her. We mentioned Breakfast Club. I love the book Franny and Zoe. I'm currently reading the book The Woman Destroyed, which is very interesting. I'd like to talk about that later. We mentioned To Kill a Mockingbird. Marriage Story is also a great coming of age movie in a very different light. And then the one that really got me thinking about what I said before, Tuesdays with Maury, I just read. And Maury is on his last leg and gets diagnosed with a terminal illness, and he enters this enlightened state almost at the very, very end of his life and passes it on to Mitch, the author of the book. And I think almost that goes back to my realization of you don't want these lessons to be lost like tears in the rain. You got to pass them on somehow. And that's another realization I have of go out and do your stuff because the energy will pass on to others. I think we mentioned this. We talked about this in one of the last episodes we were on, Passion Project one. So yeah. Maury went out there and he up until the end was putting his mantras, energies, and thoughts out into the world for the better.
Absolutely. Great picks, Kevin. Great picks. I knew you would have some good ones, and I think some on that list that I would like to revisit / experience for the first time because I haven't. So I'll type that up in the show notes or something so we have a running list of things to check out. I didn't make quite a long list, but a few ones I wanted to mention. I'm rereading Catcher in the Rye right now, which is something I like to do around this time every year. We talked about that. And that's interesting. I think probably one of the most quintessential coming of age novels, a classic, rightfully so. But it's interesting revisiting it now as out of school totally. And I think about the book within a school context because I would always start it at the beginning of a school year. And now that I'm like my schooling is through, it's just weird to be looking to this teenager kid, but still actively learning from the example that he sets and his own trials and tribulations. It's so hard not to sound trite too when you're talking about the themes and stuff in these books and shows and movies because they are, but it's just interesting that you can take it so many different places. So as trite as it may be, there's a million different ways to interpret.
Yeah. I like that you brought up Catcher in the Rye because we've talked about this before in prior episodes. The Salinger novels that we like to go back. I mentioned Franny and Zoe, you mentioned Catcher in the Rye. And I was just talking to one of my friends from home. We were on a hike and we had just both read Franny and Zoe and Catcher in the Rye. And I think an important lesson that those books teach you that I learned at a very young age is the question and the questioning of, wait, am I the asshole? Am I kind of an ass in this world? And you have to acknowledge that everyone's just kind of an ass sometimes because in everyone's life, you're the most important main character. And sometimes you step on some people's toes. And it's all about reflecting on that first and before you can really do anything about it. And I realized one of the most important moments in my coming of age was maybe in high school. I was always thinking, I think I'm a pretty well-liked person. I don't think I've ever gone out of my way to hurt anyone's feelings. I always try to see the good in everyone. But I realized some people are just not going to like me. And most of those people are not going to know me. And they just choose something superficial to not like me for. Or maybe I hurt someone that I really care about and they're not going to like me anymore. That's just going to happen. And it's part of life. And I can't go through life trying to be everyone's best friend because it's impossible. So that was one of the first parts of my life of becoming a mature person and realizing that everyone's life is equally as complex as my own in their own way.
And if we bring it back to like the 4 main points of the bildungsromans, see now I'm like nervous about how I'm saying that word. I'm saying it right now, right? Bildungsroman?
Yeah, I think it's fun.
Okay, whatever. Yeah. If we bring it back to those 4 main points, maybe this is too much of a stretch. Let me know what you think. But the loss of that feeling that you must be liked and letting that go and then proceeding with the journey of taking your life on a new course where you focus on your people and you become a more evolved, mature version of yourself with those people.
Well, I like that perspective because I think when I first heard you say loss, we think, oh, that's bad.
Yeah.
A loss. But in a lot of ways, losing something or willingly giving up something could open a lot of doors. And losing your baby fat, metaphorically speaking, and literally speaking, is part of becoming an adult. And if you hold on to that for your whole life, maybe that was kind of a gross metaphor, but
no, I honestly appreciate it a lot.
Okay, good. Losing something is part of growing up.
Yeah.
It could be a life. It could be a old habit or an old friend. It happens.
Absolutely. Very interesting. Yeah. Okay, my only other things that I listed out here were, again, Gilmore Girls, because it's so classic. Also interesting to see a really drawn out version of a coming of age in a whole series where there's years and years and you watch the actress grow up as the character as you are yourself growing up. I think that's why I think about Taylor Swift a lot in these contexts too, because you can trace her albums and see her coming of age, real life, deeply, deeply emotional things about a real person as you yourself are growing up. And I think that's why so many people are such big fans. And I'm sure you could say that about a lot of artists, but Taylor Swift is mine. And also, one thing I wanted to mention, we talked, I think, in our Killjoy conversation episode about Cat Person, that essay in the New Yorker. And I think that's a coming of age in a lot of ways for both characters involved, of like realizing, I don't know, it's a more honest portrayal of relationship dynamics in a modern era. And I think even as readers, we come of age just experiencing that and facing the harsh realities of that.
Yeah, well said. Looking at something candidly and realizing that's toxic and not good is just as important as finding the things that you love.
Totally.
Yeah, good point. We've done a lot of episodes together.
No, honestly, we really have, and they're all kind of like overlapping, which I think is it's fun now to be at this level in our podcasting journey.
Wow.
And our friendship. Because honestly, think about it, Kevin, like we would probably, especially now that we're not at the same school where we can like sit down for a meal together, we wouldn't be having these conversations, right? There would be I mean, maybe now and then we would hint at a few things in a vlog here or there, but we would never sit down and like really parse out things that are fascinating to the both of us. It's cool. I'm glad that we're doing it.
Me too. I'm always willing to be on the show. I would be on every week if you'd let me, but...
Well, can I tell you something that my dad has literally said to me? My dad's like, I don't listen unless Kevin's on an episode. He's like, it's not worth it to me unless I have Kevin. I was like, I'm your daughter. But okay. Like, he really likes our dynamic. He swears it's not just you, that it's the dynamic, which made me feel a little better. But this might be more regular. Maybe in every other... Well, I mean, who knows?
We're regular Kelly and Michael, really, honestly.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
We kind
I'm
of...
Kelly, obviously.
I'm going to leave you for GMA. You watch out. I'm just saying. Yeah. Okay. We'll see. Okay. Anyway, what were we saying? I forget now.
We were talking about how many episodes we've been on. Taking a good hard look at things.
Yeah. Because we talked about Cat Person, circling back from that. Okay. Now I think it's time, Kevin, that I would like to enter in a deeper discussion about High Fidelity, which you mentioned, specifically the Hulu series, but there's a little bit of background that I can run our good listeners through now. Let's get into that. So Hulu's 2020 High Fidelity series is based on the rom-com from 2000 of the same name, starring John Cusack, which I haven't seen, but Kevin has sort of seen. And that, of course, was based on the 1995 British novel by Nick Hornby, which Kevin has, but I have not.
I just bought it like a week ago. I was walking through, I wanted to go buy Les Mis, the book, and I was walking through the aisles of Barnes & Noble, and I saw Zoe Kravitz on a cover, and I said,
wait a minute,
is this an autobiography? And then I realized it was a book, and I didn't know it was a book version, because I just had seen a clip from the movie maybe the night before. So I bought the book, and it's very different than the Hulu series.
Let me say, I definitely want to look into it, because I love, and we're going to talk about how much I love the series and how much you love the series and how well done I think it is. But as a precursor, like, I'm going to talk about how much I love the series and what a great reinvention it is, having no background on the other two. So I don't know how, like, I can't compare them for you, but I can say that on its own, without knowing anything else, it's a great piece of work. Piece of art.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just objectively a great show, and when something's good's in your hand, you know that's good. So
exactly. So what I want to say about the fact that there have been so many reinventions of High Fidelity itself, and the fact that remakes are just a thing that are popular now, is that I think you have to definitely acknowledge the modern era that's becoming increasingly clear. I'm so curious how remakes might one day tackle the pandemic. Isn't that an interesting thought, how you might remake a classic tale in the context of the society we're living in now? It's a weird thing, but I imagine that it's going to happen at some point, right? Because this is such a big chunk of life now.
Yeah. Eventually there'll be a bad horror movie about the pandemic, and there'll probably be a pretty good horror. There's probably going to be a good equivalent to The Big Short version, a dramatization of how everything went wrong and what happened, and there'll be Zoom calls, and it's going to be good. But then there's also going to be the equivalent of Happy Death Day, where someone is on Zoom calls and the murderer goes through the Zoom chat to kill everyone in weird ways. And it's just, we're going to have the whole spectrum of things, so I'm excited to see how that goes.
Hold on and get ready. But something that we can pinpoint through High Fidelity itself is how I think the social commentary that's being made has to evolve with the remake, because it wouldn't make much sense to make the same kind of points about society in 1995 as it is in 2020. And of course, this series was produced before the pandemic. So just to keep that in mind. So as an example, the series slash novel slash movie focuses on a record shop owner. And I think when it started, and maybe from what you read of the book, you can speak to this, I think it had a lot to do with kind of the pretentiousness of like vinyl records and finding the right ones, and how the like obsession, I guess, with music in that way kind of got in the way of other relationships in life, and how detrimental that can become. And ultimately, like, that the snobbery of thinking you're better because of your heightened music taste or whatever gets in the way of other facets of life, which could be metaphors for all kinds of stuff, whatever. We can get into it at a later date. But now, specifically talking about like a record shop owner and vinyl records, it doesn't have the same draw because streaming platforms are a thing for music, and anybody can listen to anything, and they don't need the vinyl record to show at a party. They can just have a playlist curated. So that's just an example, I think, of how this show has done a good job of reinventing the social commentary that is necessary in new eras. And also just, I don't know, I think it's an interesting thing to look at when you're watching content, maybe specifically coming of age content, because High Fidelity certainly is.
I didn't even think about that. When the book was written, vinyls and maybe cassette tapes were the most popular form of listening to music. And then when the movie came out in the 2000s, probably CDs, maybe the first inklings of online music. And then in this version, it's really just hipsters entering the record shop. I think we both just rewatched the first episode, I believe.
Yeah.
And I love, in the first episode, Simon puts on this record that this is like an original pressing. I wanted to get the re-release, but I couldn't. I found the original, and he puts it on. It's in French, and then Charisse just walks in and is like, "What is this?" And then plugs her iPhone in and changes it to "Come on, Eileen." So, it's just funny. I didn't even think about that's something that they have to adapt. Another thing is that in the movie and the book, Rob is a male, and Rob is Robin in Hulu, and I really prefer, from what I've read, the female protagonist and the more diverse set of trio, because in the book it's just three dudes that are kind of pretentious,
straight white guys,
music snobs, while in the Hulu series they have much brighter personalities.
Yeah.
It still keeps the integrity of the character Rob. They still have this melancholy to them.
And like deeply flawed, which I think is one of my favorite things about this series. I think we're so used to these kind of cookie cutter models of like, yes, they learn from their mistakes real quick and then they're better versions of themselves. And the next episode, there'll be another kind of conflict, but they're going to get over it and be better because of it. And while that kind of basic structure is true here, Rob is, like I said, deeply flawed. Like, there are so many things that we can point to and be like, why wouldn't you just not be that way? And because that's real life. And I think that I just appreciate that. It reminds me also, and Kevin, I'm sure, I don't know if you're a big Sex and the City fan. I certainly am. It gives me Sex and the City vibes in that way, because Carrie Bradshaw is another deeply flawed protagonist, but you come to know and love her. I think she's a more realistic version of the coming of age protagonist. And I like that about Rob too.
Yeah. I think, I don't think this is spoilers, but at one point, Mac, her fifth top 5 heartbreak, her most recent one, turns to her and just yells, "You're the most selfish person I know." And, Rob, Zoe Kravitz has main character energy, and you're the main character, whether it be your life or in a fictional series. The world literally revolves around you, and that's kind of her, what's the word for that? Hubris, the tragic flaw.
Yeah.
It's very loud up in my living room. I don't know if you heard that.
I don't hear it.
The tragic flaw of Rob is that she's just so selfish and seems like she uses others just to, fill voids in herself. And I think it's just common with a lot of TV or book or movie characters, main characters.
It's interesting. I love it. I'm excited to keep rewatching, because I watched episode 1 now and I'm like, I can't wait to re-experience it. It's really, really, it's good. A question I wanted to ask you, Kevin. Okay, I'm just going to dive in. Do you think we are ever actually aware of our own coming of age? Is it something we can witness and observe in real time, or is it only something we're aware of in retrospect, in hindsight?
Oh, that's a good question.
I don't think I have a good answer, like a clear-cut answer. I don't know how I feel. I'm curious to get your take.
Yeah. I swear I wrote something down like this, but maybe I didn't. Give me one sec.
It's okay, because I skipped to the end of the list too, if that helps, if you were going in any order based on the outline, because I just skipped all.
Oh, yeah. So when I was going through, well, firstly, that's a good question. I think it all comes from inside, and you have to be the judge of whether you've entered a new chapter in your life or really a new epoch of your life, because if no one can really tell you that.
Right.
Like, I can walk up to you and say, Rachel, congratulations, you got a new job, you graduated college, you must be in this new moment of your life. When maybe you or I or anyone can still feel, no, I still feel like a child, or I still don't feel like I've entered anything new. And I think you have to be honest with yourself to decide that. But I think Devin said something interesting. I think it was maybe on our episode when you were on our show, is that life has to be lived forwards, but it can only be understood backwards. So I think it's only until you understand or look back on your life where you really realize how far you've come. Like you said before, it's not going to be one day you wake up and you think, I've done it, I've entered the new moment. But when you reflect on what you were like in middle school when you're going to bar mitzvahs, you realize, wow, I really have come a new way, and I've entered multiple new chapters since then.
And also, I think it begs the question, does it ever end? Which you talked about too when you spoke about Tuesdays with Maury. And I think it's a great point, because if it never ends, then you have to be constantly witnessing it and I want to say respecting it, but that sounds like too important a thing. But also maybe you have to be observing your constant coming of age, because I don't think it ever ends. Like we said, if there's one moment where it just ends and then you can reflect and be like, oh yes, maybe once you get to a new phase in that coming of age, you can reflect on the old parts and then they become more meaningful for different ways. But to me, you don't get around how continuous a process it is.
Yeah. Well, going back to when I was talking about Blade Runner.
Yeah.
I remember that day. I spent like the day with Emma, and we also saw Will that day. It was a really good. It was a good day.
Will.
So after we had departed Will from a diner, me and Emma were walking back to the west side, and we're talking about what chapter of our lives are we in, and we're trying to think how many chapters we've gone through. I believe I landed on chapter 5. I think I'm on chapter 5 of my life. What chapter are you on?
Oh my God.
Everyone has different size chapters, you know? Like, I'm reading Les Mis, and sometimes the chapters are like really long and sometimes they're just like a page. So,
yeah.
What do you think?
I don't know. My instinct is to go through like schooling and to think like, okay, I had my grade school life and then I went to middle school, but that kind of phased into high school because it just flowed right in. It was the same people, it was the same groups. And then the biggest, like, I would say part break, like part 1, part 2, is move to New York, go to college. And I guess I would say even, all right, I think preschool, like not preschool, but like before I went to school, like my early childhood is part 1.
Act 1.
Yeah. Then it would be elementary school, like K through 6. Then we're thinking a combo junior high, high school, and part 1. Part 2, chapter 4, Fordham.
4 for Fordham.
Yeah.
Cool.
And they moved to New York. And I think chapter 5 begins the day I came home thinking it was spring break, but it was really coronavirus.
So we're both in chapter 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have a similar breakdown?
I think so. Pretty similar. Okay. Similarly to High Fidelity, my chapter 5, which I think I'm currently in, I might be getting onto chapter 6, was prompted by a romantic breakup. So I remember, maybe this TMI, I think I'll be tasteful about it. I remember trying to explain why this relationship was ending and thinking, I think I need to enter a new chapter of my life.
Yeah.
I was using those words. And this was maybe this was in January.
Mm-hmm.
And thinking, I need to enter a new chapter. And then, like March 26th hits, and I'm like, not like this. This is not what I imagined. Not this chapter. So, wasn't expecting that, but I think I'm still in chapter 5. But chapter 5 might be, I'm like flipping through the pages, and I think chapter 6 is like a good a few pages away. So.
Okay. I would agree with that. I hope my chapter 6 gets me back to New York. That's my actual apartment, right? And I feel like once I'm sign a lease, that is going to be such a concrete symbol of my adulthood. I don't think I'm there. I'm not there yet. I have a degree, but it got sent to me in the mail. Nobody handed it to me. It doesn't feel the same.
Yeah. What I'm nervous about that I'm thinking about right now is we're thinking in chapters, but I think when we're, how old are we now? 23. When we're 83, we're going to be thinking in acts. Like, oh, that was act 1, act 2, act 3, a life in 3 acts.
Yeah.
So that's wild. It'll be here eventually.
No, it's wild to think about. You're right. And I think it'll be funny to revisit this and be like, haha, we had no idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Pull out the old iPhone 11, dust it off. Yeah.
Play that podcast. Yeah. I've got another question for you.
Sure.
In terms of observing yourself evolve and witnessing your own coming of age, what do you think, Kevin, it means to evolve? Does that mean, yes, you're a new version of yourself, but what does that mean? Does it mean your perspective has changed? Does that mean the context around you has changed? What's your take?
Well, I think it's adaptation. If we're sticking with Darwin's theory of evolution, you've shed off the parts that are holding you back, and the more evolved and more adapted parts remain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I don't need the skill set that I needed to get through a day of Felix Festa Middle School, but I need the skill set to get through a day of a pandemic, and a day of music, a day of working my job. So those parts stick around, and the parts that are really true to yourself, that are integral, stick around, while the shaveable parts, the expendable parts, leave.
I like that.
And the question is, what do you willingly keep, what do you willingly get rid of, or what is out of your control?
That's very interesting. I was going to say I never thought about it like that, but I don't think I ever thought about it, period, really. You know what I mean? And even in writing the question, I don't think I really thought about my answer. I just wanted to hear what you said.
Well, now I want to hear what you say. What do you think?
I think I totally agree. I think all of what you said is interesting. I don't mean to be the most interesting part, but the part that struck me the most, I guess, is determining, I guess, what you're giving up willingly and what is taken from you. Interesting. For me, senior year ended abruptly. I didn't give that up. That's not something I wanted to surrender. But here we are, and I think it changed who I am. It changed all of us. I don't mean, but in personal ways, I think it shifted perspective in a lot of ways. It changed the course of my life forever. And I'm going to view that very differently than I view ending a relationship that wasn't working, that wasn't productive, or quitting a job or something like that. That was a very personal decision just for me. When the context around you makes certain things impossible, it feels, I mean, for everyone, way more frustrating too, because you have no say in it. And you can't justify oh, well, this is the best thing for me. Because no, it wasn't. But this is the cards we're dealt and we deal with it now. So I think it goes back to a perspective thing, which is how we started this, right? You can look at it as woe is me, or you can look at it as, okay, here's a way I'm going to answer an interview question later to get a good job. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, nice.
Hey.
Yeah. I think what you were just saying made me think that we have our own decisions, but also just broad Darwinian evolution, a lot of it is environment driven, and we don't have control if the lake dries up or if the trees get taller. Some of us are more adapted already, and some of us have to realize that we're gonna have to learn how to climb and grow opposable thumbs. I'm getting way down into the very literal interpretation of evolution, but that's kind of what it is. Like what you said with the quarantine is you had to adapt your skill set. But since you had been preparing and learning and staying on top of your stuff before it, you were able to shift gears, even if you didn't willingly choose it.
Right. Speaking of shifting gears, I want to shift the gears of this conversation to talk a little bit more explicitly about love. Also, something I've been working on is my segueing. I think that could be a really good skill, and I feel like I'm honing it.
This is you talking on a Segway wearing a helmet in your room. Like, wow, you're getting really good.
You can't even hear this around. Yeah. No, but I want to talk more about love because I think so much about High Fidelity, if we bring it back to that, is centered around her romantic relationships. And a lot of the media we consume, specifically coming of age content, there's always a love interest. There's a love interest always. And I think that's where a lot of our Venn diagrams overlap. Kevin's like, watch this movie. I was like, do people fall in love? And then you say yes, and then I watch it. So anyway, it's something, and we always have good discussions about it. So I want to talk about love in the context of coming of age, because I don't think you can really come of age without love.
Interesting.
Do you think?
Right now, I agree with you. A lot of my coming of age has come from love. Yeah, I'd say yes.
And even like High Fidelity episode 1 Hulu series, the arc of the episode is her top. I wish I like wrote out the quote because it's like top 5 ultimate blah 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 heartbreaks. Do you know
Desert Island top 5 all time heartbreaks, something like that.
Something like that. So it's like she's literally talking about chapters of your life. She is marking off chapters in her life based on the heartbreak she was recovering from in that chapter. Yeah. Also, interestingly, on number 5, Zoe Kravitz.
Oh. And she does put them in chronological order as opposed to ranking how much they hurt. So, because it's almost like they are a causes and effect for one another. If one didn't break the heart of her, then maybe she wouldn't have found number 2, number 3, number 4.
Which I think is true. I think it goes back to everything happens for a reason. I think you could argue that in the context of a pandemic, that's how I get through a lot. It's like something somewhere later on is going to work out because of everything that's happening now. And maybe that's naive. I don't think it is. I think it's just how I get through, you know? I think it's just something we gotta say. But also in episode 1, when Rob is talking about her love for Simon, which is a very interesting relationship dynamic. Anyway, it didn't work out. But he said in the bar when they were like falling in love that the things we like are more important than what we are like. Kevin, agree or disagree?
I wrote it down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same page.
That's a great scene.
It's a great
scene. Things that you like are more important than what you are like. Whew.
It's good.
That one always stuck with me. I don't know how I feel about it, but I don't know what to say.
I'll start. I'll see how you react to what I'm about to say. I think I totally agree, and I think one, it's because I get wrapped up in the show and I'm like, if Zoe Kravitz believes it, then I believe it. So like that's number 1.
Yeah.
Number 2, though, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about the content we consume truly shaping who we are. I think so much of us is the result of what we are surrounded by, and naturally you're going to surround yourself with things you like. So I think what we are like is actively shaped by the things we like. And so maybe you're arguing it's like a chicken or the egg kind of situation where it's one and the same. You could argue both sides.
Well, it's very interesting. Here's a thought. What are you like when you are around the things that you like? We were talking about this, the director's cut of this episode, of what I was like when I'm around something that I really like.
Yeah.
Because it's different than when you're carrying these things with you in your soul. I like the Strokes so much. It is just courses through my veins.
Mm-hmm.
But I act differently when I'm with a group and I put on a concert or like a music video by them. I'm like, everyone, nothing is more important than this. This is my moment. Everyone shut up and watch this. And I think everyone wants to do that. But then you're watching your friends watch it and you can't even enjoy the thing that you love because you want them to approve it.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what it is. The things that you like are more important than what you are like, because when that thing is evoking its energy out of the universe, you're going to change who you are based on what you're around it. So
yeah,
that exists. The Stroke song, Is This It?, the greatest debut album of the 2000s, came out. It will always be a work of art, but I will change. So what I like may be more important than who I am right now, because it changes.
That's true. Like, that is the big consistent factor. And perhaps, Kevin, we can track our own coming of age based on how we react to the things that we like at different chapters of our lives.
Yeah. A thing that I'm thinking about right now is I admire Zoe Kravitz's tattoos. I think they're super cool.
Yeah.
And I want to get tattoos. And, all right, when you want a tattoo, what do you think of? You think of the things that you like so much that you want it permanently ingrained in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Do I want a Strokes lyric on my arm? Right now I do. That'd be cool for me. Maybe not to anyone else, but I don't care. But then I think, wow, what will it look like when I'm 60? What if I don't like the Strokes tomorrow? What if one of them comes out and does something dumb and now I have them in my body my whole life?
Mm-hmm.
But then I also think the counter argument to that is, well, it's just a testament to who I was in the moment. Just like Zoe Kravitz's character, I think Rob gets Justin or something on her shoulder. So, yeah. And she didn't seem ashamed of it. She said, well, that's what I did in the moment. That's what I thought was the best decision.
Totally. Yeah. Totally. As a follow-up now, do you think romantically, or even in other ways, let's stick to romance. It's more fun. Do you think the people we connect with are just like the same things that we like, or do you think they are inherently like us?
Oh, that's so interesting. I'm thinking back to my past relationships. I start crying for 20 minutes.
And that is Kevin's top one, ultimate desert island, all-time heartbreak.
I think the people that I've fallen in love with are really, really liked, whether it be romantic interests. Well, you said keep it with romance. So because I love a lot of people and a lot of things, but I'll keep it with my romantic loves. There was a nice balance. We talk about Venn diagrams of there was a solid base where I really like music. I think I need to be able to talk about art or music with you if we're gonna fall in love. But you don't have to like exactly the same bands as me. You just need to be willing to say, Kevin, that was a really good Stroke song you put on. Thanks. The 6th one in a row, but I guess it's fine. But then also tell me when to change the song. I appreciate that also in someone that I love. But I think it's also a necessity to have stuff outside of your realm of knowledge and passion because that pushes you outside your boundaries.
Yeah.
Example was I dated someone for a long time that was a fantastic dancer, still is a fantastic dancer, and I'm not a fantastic dancer, and that was really hard for me. And now I just boogie woogie whenever I want to, and boogie woogie. Boogieing is so different than boogie woogie. Boogie woogie is like different. 1920s post World War I coming out of a single stereo and wagging your finger. But boogieing is you can do it at all ages. So I boogie whenever I want. And that's something I learned because the person I loved that. And I didn't love it yet, but I learned to love it for me. Even after the relationship evolved to not existing anymore.
Ooh, okay. Okay. No, listen, no, it worked. That was good. I like what you said there. I think I'm inclined to say that I just think life would be so boring if you and your person liked all of the same exact things. So I agree with what you're saying. So I think if I had to pick see, I'm getting confused because the verbiage is difficult here. Not necessarily the person I want to be with doesn't necessarily like the same things as me, but they need to be like me. They need to like me, first of all, and they need to be they need to be like me in that I can speak very passionately about those things that I love, and they will encourage that, and then they could do that. They can have their turn too, and we'll kind of, I don't know, appreciate how much the other likes the stuff without needing to like that stuff because you like the person.
I think what attracts me a lot is when someone is passionate about something, and I get excited if they say, "Oh my God, I was at that concert too. It was great." I say, "Whoa, there's a spark there." But also, if I can just sit back and enjoy this passion that's radiating off the someone that I'm just learning about, that's also attractive and romantic and beautiful, even if I don't know anything about early 20th century impressionist art. You know, I just like, I don't know, but you know about it, and that's exciting.
Yeah. So like when you become that outlet, that like sounding board for someone else who just wants to, you know, I think there's something really nice about that.
Absolutely.
I love that. Yeah. Okay, I have another love question. Are you ready for
this
it?
is like an interview, but I like it. I like the format. I can answer questions all day.
Okay, good. That's why I like to have you on the show. That's why my dad likes you on the show. We're all fans. I wrote, while we're on the subject, what do you think is more influential to somebody's coming of age? Love or heartbreak? Ooh. I have some follow-ups, but what are your initial reactions? Let me say this as a preface. You certainly can't have heartbreak without love. But can you have love without heartbreak? I mean, yeah, ultimately that has to happen at some point. It's perhaps short-lived depending on the scenario, but love can exist without heartbreak. Heartbreak cannot exist without love. So which is more impactful?
Ooh, well, my initial answer is love. Because I've been in love a few times and in a few forms, and I don't think I've ever had my heart broken. Ooh. But loves have ended or shifted.
Okay.
Both like the romantic loves I've had, I don't stop loving them. So, but my heart can be broken, but I think the love has shifted. But then also I love my friends deeply.
Yeah.
And I haven't been heartbroken by them. So I think love teaches me more, but also maybe I just haven't had my heart broken and I don't want that to happen, but maybe it'll probably happen in my lifetime. So yeah, I think love, I think being in love teaches you a lot about yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's not easy. It's really hard.
But I would say, I guess my but about that is I think some of the greatest art ever, songs and even books and everything, poems, have come from intense heartbreak, like rock your world kind of heartbreak. So I think just the transfer of that energy into creative energy, into stuff that relates to so many people is so meaningful. And I guess you could say the same about love now that I'm talking it out. I don't know, there's just something about heartbreak, even in the title of High Fidelity season or episode 1, like she listed out based on heartbreak, not based on love. The episode would have been the same if she said the 5 greatest loves of my life. It would have been the same exact structure. She could have told the same stories and in the same chronological order. But we learn, I think, so much more about the character because she frames it as a heartbreak. And maybe it's a perspective thing too, because again, you can't have one without the other in this case. But I don't know. That's why I think I was inclined to go more heartbreak.
Well, this might be a little brutal or almost callous in my response here, but I'm thinking of we are the viewer, and I think it's much more fun for us to watch someone in pain. It's more entertaining.
Yeah.
And I think the phrase is schadenfreude, the enjoyment of watching someone else's displeasure or misery. Because I also think about, okay, what you're looking at someone in love, they're staring lovingly at their partner. Maybe it's bright and pink and fun. When you're watching someone who's heartbroken, I mean, you could tell they are not. It is apparent. And I'm thinking back to this, I don't know, a parable or a story about observing love. Maybe I've mentioned this before, but if you're in a shed and there's a single strain of light going through the shed and you're looking at it from the side, you're like, oh, look, there is a single strain of light in the shed. There it is. There must be light. It must be warm. It must be this. But if you're standing in it and you're looking directly into the sun or you feel the warmth on your face, that's much different than looking at it from the side. So I think love is much more experience and you can curl yourself in it when you're in it. But heartbreak is more interesting and you could maybe tell a better story from the third person.
That's
from the
true.
Heartbreak side.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Again, a lesson in perspective, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I just don't. I'm gonna look back on this episode, and I don't know when it'll be. It could be a year. It could be 30 years. But I'm gonna say I can listen back to my 23-year-old voice, like, "Oh, I've never had my heart broken." So, and I'm gonna be like, "Oh, buddy, you have no idea what's gonna come. No idea. Your world's gonna be rocked. You're on chapter 5. I finished the book, buddy. I read it twice. Get out of here." So, whew,
you never know.
Future me, like. I'm coming for you. Like, just help me out. I'll do my best for you while I'm here.
That's so wild. Oh, such a good point. Any other things you have? I know you have a lot of notes on high fidelity, on coming of age. What is outstanding yet? Like, what do you still need to talk about?
Oh, okay.
I want to turn it around. If you have a question for me.
Oh, interesting.
Whatever you think.
Well, firstly, I just want to give a shout out. I think High Fidelity, we were talking about this before we started recording, has been canceled. I don't know why. It's such a good show. For the soundtrack existing alone, I think we should put that in the Library of Congress and keep it, because it is an amazing soundtrack. So good.
That's big.
I think it's a fantastic soundtrack. And I also like how everyone else has their own coming of age, like Simon, Charisse, and Cam, her brother. Like, I like and Clyde, like her will they won't they crush, and you know, they kind of have like one of the climactic scene where they're in Cam's last dance, like he's gonna have a baby, so he like kind of goes crazy one last time, and that kind of all culminates, and everyone's thinking, we gotta grow up. I don't want to do this anymore. We all gotta buckle down and make decisions, and I think that's part of. It was nice to see everyone do it as opposed to just following Rob. I don't know how the book or the movie progress. It might just be more focused on Rob. But like in the movie or the TV show where you have more time, you see all these different diverse groups of people going about their own lives. Here's a question. Was there any character that you felt acclimated to or liked?
I mean, like you were saying before, on the first watch, I definitely just was very focused on Rob, and I was so interested in her journey and how she evolved through this heartbreak. But now already, as I'm doing the second watch, I can't stop thinking about how badly I guess I wanted season 2 to tell the same story, but to do it from Mac's perspective, which is the main love interest. I think that would be so fascinating to watch, and to see his take on everything, and the move to London, and the new girl Lily, and to just watch his love story, because again, that would be him as the protagonist. He is centered, and Rob is just somebody who kind of comes in and out, and we're not sure if they're going to end up together or not. Or I would be so fascinated to watch the same exact chronological time, but from his perspective, to know about his past heartbreaks and to see how that shaped him into the person who fell in love with Rob, and explain maybe more why it ended and why there's always this draw. I'm so curious about it.
That's really interesting, because I think when you go through heartbreak or a bad breakup, that's kind of like what you think about of what are they doing? What are they doing? Like, I don't want to think about it, but also what are they doing? I'd like to know. So it'd be odd. How do they balance that? Like, what is Rob imagining and what is actually happening with Mac? Wow. I'd like to see that too. I've also, on this past watch, I'm interested in Rob's brother Cam. Like he's the older brother. He's married already. He found his true love, but he's going through less romantic and more existential, life-altering ones. And also, I just like Clyde. He seems like a good guy.
He just does. Jake Lacey plays him. Jake Lacey is such a specific actor for such a specific role, and he's just the perfect Clyde. I can't think of anybody else who I want playing that role.
I had never seen Jake Lacey before, but I liked him in High Fidelity, and then once I was done with High Fidelity, I started Rami, which is also a great coming-of-age story. And he's in that as Rami's sister has a romantic interest. And spoiler alert, like, while Clyde in High Fidelity is like a really nice guy, the guy that he plays in is not a cool guy, but he's really good at balancing it. Being approachable. And when he like came on screen, I literally pumped my fist. I was like, "Yes, he's back. I get more Clyde." So
he's interesting. I'm very interested to watch that now, because I really thought he was like this was his role. Because I'm trying to think of like, I know I've seen him before. He's like a rom-com kind of staple where it's just like He's the good guy, usually the rebound guy. He's always wearing khakis and a vest.
Yeah. I'd like to see more of him.
I
don't know if I'd want a full series like how you would want the Mac series.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I almost said that when you brought him up. I was like, I'd like to see Clyde, but I'm like, I don't actually think of that I do.
Yeah. I think it fits better that he kind of just comes in and out of Rob's life because it highlights her selfishness and that she just, the only time he's on screen is when she kind of caves and calls him in. Mm-hmm. She's a little lonely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or needs a car, or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, classic Clyde.
I also am reading The Woman Destroyed, which is, I'll recommend it to you, Rachel. It's pretty great. Simone de Beauvoir wrote this in the mid 20th century. They all take place in France. It's 3 older women, kind of over 50, in France, and there's 3 shorter ones, so you can kind of get through them pretty quickly. And a lot of it is kind of relates to Rob's story of a relationship ending or changing and dealing with it. It's very psychological. It's very stream of consciousness in their heads. So that's what I've been interested in reading. I never get to think like a woman. I'll never be able to. And the best chance I get is reading really good writers that are women and the protagonists that are women. So the first and the third is The Woman Destroyed. The first one is kind of similar. It's like an older couple in France, and their husbands get really involved in their work, and they're grappling with that. In The Woman Destroyed, the book, the husband wants to have an open marriage and kind of going through the psychological doubts. And I think the modern version we call gaslighting. You know what this person's doing to the wife. And then the middle one is this unhinged monologue, just straight through, of this person that's kind of losing their minds because their life isn't going as planned. And I think that's the ultimate fear. We work so hard to build up these lives and try to find love and try to find the right career, and we just worry that we're going to have this unhinged meltdown because life isn't what we want it to. But when we're 23, we have all this potential ahead of us. But when we're whoever Kevin looking back on this, whenever I'm listening to this, when I'm laughing at myself for not being heartbroken, you know, I might have an unhinged moment or two. I think we all will. So I highly recommend that book, and it's just nice to get into that psyche.
I think that's why I want so bad, and maybe honestly I should just watch the movie High Fidelity so I could get the male perspective in that regard, because I think that's what I'm craving from like a deep dive on Mac's character. So maybe that would kind of fill that void a little bit for me. But it is fascinating for me to see how a guy approaches it, the same exact situation, because I think that's where a lot of the miscommunications happen too, is the same exact situation, but people interpret things so much differently. Maybe that's where a lot of flaws in relationships come from. So I don't know, the more we like learn about the other side, like you said, I'm never going to be in that actual position, but if I can kind of learn about it through like the relaying of an experience.
That was the first thing I thought when I started reading the High Fidelity book was, whoa, this is very male.
Yeah.
And I didn't think for the show, wow, this is very female. I never felt that. I just thought these are the characters, so maybe it felt more balanced in the show. But in the book, it was very male. So
I gotta read. I would be so interested just to compare and to watch the movie too, because I don't know. I'm just so interested. And I'm curious if it's going to be the thing where, like, I feel this way about a lot of Glee covers that I know and love. It's like, I love the cover because it's what I learned first. So it's like, how can you think this is better than the original? It's like, because to me, this is the original. So to me, Zoe Kravitz is the original Rob. So if I'm trying to watch John Cusack, I'm like, get out of here with this. Yeah. Good try, buddy. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's what's going to happen, and I think that's what stopped me from watching.
Yeah. That's really an argument that Cherries and Simon get into an argument about some song, and he's like, Frankie Valli? And he's like, no,
yes!
Lauryn Hill. What's wrong with Lauryn Hill? Nothing. I just like the original better. It was just miscommunications.
Oh, yeah. It's such a good show. If you take anything away, it's like, think about your own coming of age, observe it, enjoy it, but also watch the show. Like, I can't imagine anyone watching it and being like, I really can't.
I accidentally said watch High Maintenance, which is another great show that I really like.
I didn't even notice. See how I just went along with it?
Yeah, High Fidelity and High Maintenance.
Watch them both.
watch what we like, please.
Yeah.
If you don't like what I don't like, then I don't have an identity, and then I don't know who I am. And just please, like the Strokes, watch High Fidelity, please.
Stop making sense.
Watch Stop Making Sense.
Oh my God.
Give me a call.
Oh, this is going to be a long one, Kevin. I was going to try to cap it, but I really just think there were too many good things to be said. I didn't want to limit us.
Yeah. Is this going to be a one-parter, just a big one-parter?
I think it's just a big one-parter.
Good.
Because it's not going to be a clean cut. And I'm like, why not? One time, one person DM'd me and they were like, hey, love what you're doing, but could you try to make them shorter? And I was like, thanks. But also, okay, so then I was like, all right, they'll never be over an hour. But I'm also thinking, like, you don't gotta listen to it in one sitting. You don't have to listen to it at all. Like, why am I trying to hinder our conversation just so somebody can have a nice 35 minutes of oh, there's a big bug. I'm so sorry. I think it's just a moth. It's just a moth. But it flew right. Did you see it? Did you come in the view?
No, I see the 5 butterflies behind you, though, but not the big
Those
moth.
are fake.
Yeah.
Probably looking at it on the wall, so we're fine. It's fine. But anyway, that was why I was like, oh, maybe we should try to. That's the birth of the 2-parter, which honestly is helpful.
That one person that DM'd you.
I know. So if you're listening, you won't listen to this.
Was it the Kevin episode?
No, it was our 6-month anniversary episode because that was an hour and 7 minutes because I got into a really big tangent about how hot Tay-Tix is.
Which happened last week, right?
Which we revisited in its own episode, so full circle.
I prefer long podcasts because if it's someone that I like listening to, if I listen to the podcast, I like it.
Right.
So more content, the better for me.
That's the thing.
I mean, this is going to be me talking, and I do enjoy listening back to myself talk.
So do I.
Our conversation. So
it's one of my favorite things.
Oh, I saw it. It flew behind you.
Really?
It's huge. Oh my God! Run.
Now I'm like nervous because I know it's here and I just can't. Okay, we got to wrap up. Do you have anything else do you want to say about anything?
Listen to, if you're going through any sort of coming of age moment, put on Is This It, the 2001 album by The Strokes, and I promise you it'll help you get through it, especially with the fall weather coming. I'm feeling a little nervous about the cold weather because just gotta mentally prepare myself, but The Strokes are always there for me. It's great fall weather music as you put your jean jackets on. So
I love a good denim jacket song. I have a playlist of denim jacket songs.
Fantastic.
I love that. I'll add some Strokes to it right after this.
Fantastic.
Right. I think that's what we got. Kevin, what another really strong episode, one that I'm sure we will reference a lot in whatever the next episode we do is. And I think that's the sign of a good one, you know? We just can't let it go. All right.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll do my little sign off. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to follow us on Spotify or subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, feel free to rate and review. We would really appreciate. You can also find us on Instagram at h.e.r.blog.life. You can find blog posts at h.e.r.bloglife.online. And of course, for behind the scenes videos that are, for the most part, unedited, but sometimes we redact certain little bits just at the request of our guests. You could just search my name, Rachel Malak, on YouTube and find my channel. That's all I got. As always, thank you so much for listening. Again, Kevin, thank you for joining. It really is. It's just always a good time. We got a good dynamic endorsed by Rick Malak.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you, Mr. Malak, for listening. I appreciate it. I appreciate your support.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. I'm Rachel Malak. This has been the h.e.r.LIFE BLOGCAST.